The chapel bell should have been ringing by now. Instead, silence hung over the small Texas town like a heavy blanket on a summer night. Marcus wiped his sweaty palms on his faded jeans for the 100th time, standing outside the old wooden church where his brother's wedding was supposed to happen 30 minutes ago. He was a simple ranch hand, 24 years old, and painfully shy around women. His weathered cowboy hat sat low over his eyes, hiding his nervous expression from the growing crowd of concerned wedding guests. People whispered and checked their phones, wondering what could possibly delay such an important day. Then he saw her. Sarah emerged from a black car that seemed too small for her towering frame. She stood 6 feet 7 inches tall, a former college basketball star who moved with surprising grace despite her impressive height. Her wedding dress shimmered white in the afternoon sun, the custom-made gown flowing around her like water. Dark curls cascaded over her shoulders, and her brown eyes held an emotion Marcus couldn't quite read from this distance. She was supposed to marry his older brother, Jackson. Everyone in 3 counties knew about their relationship. Jackson was confident, charming, and never seemed intimidated by Sarah's height or success. They seemed perfect together, or so everyone thought. Sarah spotted Marcus and walked toward him with determined steps. The crowd parted automatically, creating a path for the statuesque bride. Marcus felt his heart hammer against his ribs. He had barely spoken 10 words to his future sister-in-law during their entire engagement. She was so beautiful, so accomplished, so far out of his league that he could barely make eye contact during family dinners. "Where is he?" Her voice carried strength but also a tremor of vulnerability. Marcus swallowed hard. "I don't know. Jackson left the house this morning and nobody's seen him since. His phone goes straight to voicemail." Sarah's jaw tightened. She clutched her bouquet of white roses so hard that her knuckles turned pale. "Of course it does. I'm sure there's an explanation. Stop calling me Marcus. I'm not that much older than you." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, tears threatened to spill over. "He's not coming, is he?" Marcus wanted to lie, to offer false hope, but something in her expression demanded honesty. "No, I don't think he is." The words hung between them like a guillotine blade. Sarah nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already knew. She turned to face the church, where over 200 guests waited inside. Her shoulders straightened with the kind of courage Marcus had only seen in war movies. "I need to tell them," she said quietly. "I need to go in there and explain that there won't be a wedding today." "You don't have to do this alone," Marcus heard himself say. The words surprised him as much as they surprised her. She looked down at him with an expression that mixed gratitude with deep sadness. "Yes, I do. This is my mess to clean up." But as she took a step toward the church entrance, her knees buckled. The emotional weight of the moment crashed over her like a tidal wave. Marcus moved without thinking, catching her elbow to steady her. Despite their height difference, he anchored her with surprising strength earned from years of ranch work. "Thank you," she whispered. "Let me help you," Marcus offered. "You shouldn't face all those people by yourself. Jackson's my brother. His failure is my family's failure too." Sarah studied his face for a long moment. In that gaze, something shifted. She saw past his shyness to the genuine kindness underneath. "Okay," she finally agreed. Together, they walked into the church. Marcus felt every eye turn toward them as they moved down the aisle. The organ music died away. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah climbed the steps to where the preacher stood with increasing concern on his weathered face. She turned to address the congregation, still holding Marcus's hand for support. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her voice steady despite the tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "I'm sorry to inform you that there will be no wedding." The reception hall had been paid for months in advance. After Sarah's devastating announcement in the church, her mother suggested they shouldn't let the food and music go to waste. What started as a wedding celebration transformed into something else entirely, a gathering of community support for a woman publicly humiliated on what should have been the happiest day of her life. Marcus stayed close to Sarah throughout the evening, not because anyone asked him to, but because it felt like the right thing to do. He fetched her water when she looked overwhelmed. He deflected nosy questions from guests who wanted details about Jackson's disappearance. He simply stood nearby, a quiet presence in the storm of chaos surrounding her. As the evening wore on, most guests eventually left. The older folks went home first, shaking their heads about young people and commitment. The distant relatives followed, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. By 10 o'clock, only a handful of people remained in the large hall decorated with flowers and white ribbons that now seemed to mock the day's outcome. Sarah sat alone at the head table, still wearing her wedding dress. She had removed her veil hours ago, and her carefully styled hair had begun to fall loose around her face. A half-empty glass of champagne sat before her, the bubbles long gone flat. Marcus approached carefully, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "Can I sit down?" She gestured to the empty chair beside her, the chair where Jackson should have been sitting. "I suppose that seat's available now." He sat, unsure what to say. The silence between them felt heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, Sarah spoke. "Did you know he was going to do this?" "No," Marcus answered honestly. "Jackson and I aren't that close anymore. Haven't been for years, really. He's always been the golden child, and I'm just the younger brother who works with horses and cattle." "He talked about you sometimes," Sarah said softly. "Always with this weird mixture of pride and condescension. Like he was pleased you existed but also slightly embarrassed by you." Marcus smiled despite the situation. "That sounds about right." Sarah took a sip of her flat champagne and grimaced. "God, this tastes awful now. Everything about today is awful." She stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need to get out of this dress. I need to get out of this place. I need to go somewhere, anywhere but here." "Where do you want to go?" Marcus asked. "I don't know. Drive somewhere. Anywhere. I just can't stand being in this room with all these decorations celebrating a marriage that's never going to happen." She looked at him with desperate eyes. "Will you drive me? I can't be alone right now, but I can't be around family either. Everyone keeps looking at me with pity, and I can't stand it." Marcus stood without hesitation. "Let me grab my truck keys." 20 minutes later, they were driving down empty country roads with the windows down and the radio off. Sarah had changed out of her wedding dress and into jeans and a simple shirt she'd packed for the honeymoon. The dress itself lay in a heap in the backseat, a crumpled symbol of broken dreams. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked. "There's a place about an hour from here," Marcus said, keeping his eyes on the dark road ahead. "A lake where my daddy used to take me fishing when I was a kid. Nobody goes there at night. It's peaceful." She nodded and settled back into the seat. "That sounds perfect." They drove in silence for a while, the Texas landscape rolling by in the darkness. Stars filled the sky above them, countless pinpricks of light that seemed indifferent to human suffering. Sarah stared out the window, and Marcus occasionally glanced over to make sure she was okay. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah finally said. "Sure." "Why are you being so nice to me? Jackson's your brother. Shouldn't you be angry that I'm talking about him this way?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "Jackson made his choice. He hurt you, and that's not right. Family doesn't excuse cruelty. Besides, you didn't deserve what happened today. Nobody deserves that." Fresh tears rolled down Sarah's cheeks. "I feel so stupid." Looking back, there were signs. Times when he seemed distant or made excuses to postpone wedding planning. "I just kept telling myself it was normal pre-wedding jitters." "That's not stupid," Marcus said firmly. "That's called having faith in someone you love. He's the one who should feel stupid for throwing away someone like you." She looked at him with surprise. "Someone like me?" Marcus felt his face grow hot. "I just mean you're smart and accomplished and kind. Any man would be lucky to have you. Even though I'm freakishly tall?" "You're not freakish," Marcus said quickly. "You're striking. There's a difference." Sarah laughed for the first time since the morning. It was a small, broken sound, but it was genuine. "You're sweet, Marcus. I never noticed that before." They reached the lake just before midnight. Marcus parked near the water's edge, and they got out to sit on the hood of his truck. The lake stretched before them like liquid glass, reflecting the moon and stars. Crickets sang in the grass, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of water and earth. "This is beautiful," Sarah said softly. "Yeah," Marcus agreed, but he wasn't looking at the lake. He was looking at her profile in the moonlight, thinking that his brother was the biggest fool in Texas. The night grew deeper, and the air turned cool. Marcus retrieved a blanket from behind the truck seat and draped it around Sarah's shoulders. She pulled it tight, grateful for the warmth. They sat side by side on the hood, two people who barely knew each other sharing an intimacy born from crisis. "Tell me something true," Sarah said suddenly. "Something real about yourself that nobody else knows." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Talking about himself had never been his strong suit. "I don't know what to say." "Anything. I just need to hear something honest right now. Today was supposed to be about truth and commitment, and it turned out to be built on lies." I need something real. He thought for a long moment. Okay. I hate working on the ranch. Sarah turned to look at him with surprise. Really? But you've worked there your whole life. Because it's what my daddy did, and his daddy before him. Everyone just assumed I'd take over the family business. But the truth is, I've always wanted to do something different. Something creative. He laughed self-consciously. This is going to sound ridiculous. Tell me, she encouraged. I want to build furniture. Custom pieces from reclaimed wood. I've been teaching myself woodworking for years, watching videos online, practicing in the barn when nobody's around. I've made a few things, a table, some chairs, a bookshelf, and they're not half bad. But when I mentioned it to Jackson once, he laughed so hard I never brought it up again. That's not ridiculous at all, Sarah said with feeling. That's beautiful. Do you have pictures of your work? Marcus pulled out his phone, hesitating briefly before opening his photo gallery. He showed her images of his creations, elegant tables with live edges, chairs with intricate joinery, a hope chest decorated with subtle carvings. Each piece showed tremendous skill and artistic vision. Sarah studied each photo carefully. Marcus, these are incredible. You're really talented. His face flushed with pleasure. You really think so? I know so. I minored in art history in college. I've seen museum pieces with less craftsmanship than this. She handed back his phone. Why haven't you pursued this? Fear, I guess. Fear of failing. Fear of disappointing my family. Fear of people like Jackson laughing at me for having dreams beyond what they think I'm capable of. I understand that, Sarah said quietly. I gave up basketball after college even though I had offers to play professionally overseas. My parents thought it wasn't a stable career. They encouraged me to get my MBA and work in corporate management instead. I've spent the last 3 years in an office job I tolerate but don't love, and I've always wondered what might have been. Why did you listen to them? She smiled sadly. Same reasons as you. Fear. The need for approval. The desire to fit into a conventional life even when conventional never quite fit me, literally. She gestured to her height. I've spent my whole life trying to make myself smaller, less noticeable, more acceptable. I slouched to seem shorter. I dated men who were threatened by my success and tried to downplay my accomplishments to make them comfortable. I almost married someone who I now realize probably saw me as a trophy, the tall, pretty girl he could show off to prove his masculinity. Jackson's an idiot, Marcus said bluntly. Sarah burst out laughing. Yes, he is. But so am I for not seeing it sooner. No, Marcus said firmly. You're not an idiot. You're human. You wanted love and commitment and a future with someone. There's nothing wrong with that. She studied his face in the moonlight. How are you so wise for someone who claims to be shy? I'm not wise. I just pay attention. When you don't talk much, you learn to listen and watch instead. And what have you noticed? Sarah asked, her voice taking on a curious tone. Marcus felt his courage rising, perhaps fueled by the surreal nature of the evening. I noticed that at family dinners, you always served yourself last to make sure everyone else had enough. I noticed that you asked my mother about her garden because you genuinely cared, not just to make conversation. I noticed that when Jackson interrupted you, which he did constantly, you'd stop talking and let him finish even when your story was clearly more interesting. Sarah's eyes widened. You noticed all that? I notice a lot about you, Marcus admitted, then immediately looked away, embarrassed by his confession. She reached over and gently turned his face back toward her. Like what else? His heart pounded. Like how you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking hard about something. Like how you're left-handed but force yourself to shake hands with your right because someone once told you it was more professional. Like how you love thunderstorms even though they make you jumpy. Like how your real laugh is different from your polite laugh, and I've only heard your real laugh maybe 3 times. 4 times now, she said softly. At the lake earlier. That was real. They sat in silence, the air between them charged with an emotion neither could quite name. Finally, Sarah spoke again. This is crazy, isn't it? Today I was supposed to marry your brother, and now here we are, sharing secrets by a lake in the middle of the night. Life's crazy, Marcus agreed. But maybe that's not always a bad thing. Sarah looked up at the stars, her expression thoughtful. You know what the worst part is? I'm not even sure I love Jackson. Not really. I think I love the idea of him. The idea of being chosen by someone confident and successful. The idea of a normal relationship that would lead to a normal marriage and normal life. but normal has never really worked for me. Then maybe you shouldn't aim for normal, Marcus suggested. She looked at him intently. What should I aim for instead? Happy, he said simply. Just aim for happy, whatever that looks like for you. Dawn approached slowly, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Marcus and Sarah had talked through the entire night, sharing stories and dreams they'd never told anyone else. The blanket had migrated from around her shoulders to covering both of them as they sat close together against the morning chill. I should probably go home, Sarah said, but she made no move to leave. Probably, Marcus agreed, equally still. People will be worried. Most likely. This has been the strangest night of my life, she said, turning to look at him directly. But also one of the best. Does that make me a terrible person? No, Marcus said. It makes you honest. She reached up and touched his face gently, her fingers tracing his jawline. What are we doing, Marcus? I don't know, he admitted. But whatever it is, it feels right. It's too soon, she protested weakly. Today was supposed to be my wedding day. This is crazy. You said yourself that maybe you never really loved him. And honestly, Sarah, I've been drawn to you since the first time Jackson brought you home for dinner. I never said anything because you were his, and I'd never do that to my brother. But he gave up his claim when he abandoned you at that church. You've been drawn to me? She sounded genuinely surprised. Marcus laughed. How could I not be? You're amazing. And yes, you're beautiful, but that's not even the main thing. It's the way you carry yourself. The way you treat people. The way you're strong but also vulnerable. The way you're sitting here with me right now instead of falling apart, even though you'd have every right to. I might still fall apart, she warned. Then I'll be here to help pick up the pieces. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again, but these were different from the ones she'd shed in the church. I don't deserve you. That's not true. You deserve someone who sees you, really sees you, and values every part of who you are. Someone who isn't intimidated by your strength or your height or your success. Someone who wants to build you up instead of making you feel small. Is that someone you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus took a deep breath, gathering his courage. I'd like the chance to try to be. She leaned toward him slowly, giving him every opportunity to pull away. When he didn't, she closed the remaining distance and kissed him. It was gentle and tentative, a question more than a statement. Marcus responded carefully, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing heavily. We can't tell anyone about this, Sarah said. Not yet. People would judge us so harshly. They'd say I moved on too fast, that you betrayed your brother, that we're making a mistake in the heat of emotion. Are we? Marcus asked. Making a mistake. She considered the question seriously. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. But I also know that when I'm with you, I feel more seen and valued than I ever did with Jackson. That has to mean something. So what do? We go home. We face the aftermath of today. We give it time and see if what we're feeling right now survives the harsh light of day and the judgment of everyone around us. She paused, then added, but I want it to survive, Marcus. That scares me, but I want it. I want it too, he confessed. They drove back as the sun rose higher, transforming the landscape from shadowy mystery to clear reality. When Marcus pulled up in front of Sarah's apartment, they sat in the truck for a long moment, neither wanting to break the spell of their night together. Thank you, Sarah said finally. For everything. For being there when I needed someone. For listening. For making this horrible day bearable. Anytime, Marcus said, and he meant it. She leaned over and kissed his cheek. I'll call you. In a few days, when things settle down. We'll talk about everything then. I'll be waiting, he promised. He watched her walk to her door, still carrying the crumpled wedding dress. Before going inside, she turned and waved. He waved back, his heart full of emotions he couldn't name. As he drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. The next few days were difficult for both of them. Jackson finally resurfaced with a sheepish explanation about cold feet and not knowing how to call off the wedding. He expected sympathy but found none. Sarah refused to take his calls. Their parents were furious. The entire community buzzed with gossip about the runaway groom and the abandoned bride. Marcus kept his distance from the drama, working on the ranch during the day and building furniture in the barn at night. Every time his phone buzzed, his heart leaped, hoping it was Sarah. But she needed time, and he understood that. What they'd shared at the lake had been intense and real, but it had also been born from trauma and unusual circumstances. It needed to be tested in normal life before either of them could trust it. On the 5th day after the failed wedding, Sarah finally called. "Can you meet me?" she asked without preamble. "When and where?" "Tonight. The lake. Our lake." "I'll be there," Marcus promised immediately. Marcus arrived at the lake first, parking in the same spot as before. He'd brought camping chairs this time, along with coffee in a thermos and homemade sandwiches. The sun was setting, painting the water in brilliant oranges and purples. Sarah arrived 15 minutes later, looking both nervous and determined. She'd let her natural curls loose around her face, and she wore comfortable clothes, jeans and a soft sweater that made her look approachable and real, not like the polished professional or elegant bride from before. "Hi," she said, accepting the coffee he offered with a grateful smile. "Hi yourself. How are you holding up?" She settled into the camping chair with a sigh. "Better than expected. Worse than hoped. I've spent the last 5 days alternating between crying, rage cleaning my apartment, and trying to figure out what I actually want from my life." "Did you figure it out?" "Some of it. I quit my job." Marcus nearly spilled his coffee. "What?" "I quit my corporate job. I'm going to take some time to figure out what I really want to do. Maybe go back to basketball in some capacity, coaching, maybe, or working with youth programs. Maybe something else entirely. But I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not just because it's what people expect." "That's amazing, Sarah. I'm proud of you." "I also talked to Jackson," she continued. "Really talked, not just yelled, which is what I wanted to do. He admitted that he'd been having doubts for months but felt trapped by everyone's expectations. He said he loved me but wasn't in love with me, which honestly is probably the most honest thing he's ever said. We agreed to close that chapter completely. No lingering feelings, no what ifs, just done." "How do you feel about that?" "Relieved, mostly. A little sad for what could have been, but mostly relieved." She turned to look at him directly. "And that brings me to why I asked you here." Marcus's heart started racing. "Okay. That night we spent here, talking and being honest with each other, that meant something to me. You meant something to me. I've thought about you every day since. But I also needed to make sure it wasn't just the emotion of the moment, that I wasn't just transferring feelings or looking for a rebound." "And?" He could barely breathe. "And I'm sure. I'm interested in you, Marcus. Not as a replacement for Jackson, but as yourself. The shy cowboy who builds beautiful furniture and notices small details and makes me feel valued just by being present." She paused, gathering courage. "But I need to know if you're still interested too, now that the crisis has passed and reality has set in." Marcus stood up from his chair and knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Sarah, I've been waiting for this call for 5 days. I've been working on something for you, actually." "What do you mean?" He led her to his truck and pulled out a carefully wrapped package from the covered bed. "I made this for you. I started it the day after the wedding and finished it this morning. I had to do something with all my nervous energy." Sarah carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a wooden jewelry box, beautifully crafted from reclaimed barn wood. The top was inlaid with a delicate pattern of lighter wood forming a star constellation, the exact configuration of stars that had been visible the night they'd spent at the lake. "Marcus," she breathed, running her fingers over the smooth surface. "This is beautiful. The stars." "From that night," he confirmed. "I took a picture of the sky and recreated the pattern. I wanted you to have something to remember it by, even if you decided you didn't want anything to do with me after all." Tears streamed down her face as she carefully opened the box. Inside, he'd carved a single line of text, "Aim for happy." She set the box down carefully and threw her arms around him, nearly knocking him over with the force of her hug. "You beautiful, thoughtful man. Of course I want something to do with you." He held her tight, barely believing this was real. When they finally pulled apart, both were grinning like teenagers. "So what now?" he asked. "Now we take this slow," Sarah said. "We date properly. We get to know each other without crisis and drama. We introduce ourselves to the world as Marcus and Sarah, not as the brother and the abandoned bride. We build something real and solid, like one of your furniture pieces." "I can do slow," Marcus agreed. "Though I have to warn you, everyone's going to have opinions about us." "Let them," Sarah said with newfound confidence. "I'm done living my life according to other people's expectations. If they can't handle us being together, that's their problem, not ours." My parents might have issues with it. My parents definitely will, she laughed. But we're adults. We get to choose our own paths. They spent the evening at the lake again, talking about their hopes and plans. Marcus shared more about his dream of opening a custom furniture shop. Sarah talked about her ideas for basketball programs that would emphasize confidence and self-acceptance for tall girls who felt awkward about their height, something she wished had existed when she was younger. As stars began to appear overhead, Sarah stood and held out her hand. Dance with me. There's no music, Marcus pointed out. So? We'll make our own rhythm. He took her hand and let her pull him close. They swayed together under the stars, finding a rhythm that was entirely their own. Despite their height difference, they fit together perfectly, her head resting on top of his arms wrapped around her waist. Thank you, Sarah whispered. For what? For being exactly who you are. For not trying to be Jackson or anyone else. For showing me that sometimes the person you're meant to be with is right in front of you, hiding in plain sight. I should be thanking you, Marcus said. You make me want to be braver, to stop hiding my dreams and actually pursue them. Then let's make a deal, Sarah proposed. We push each other to be our best selves. We support each other's dreams. We build a life that makes us happy, not a life that looks good to everyone else. Deal, Marcus agreed, sealing it with a kiss. 6 months later, Marcus opened his custom furniture shop in a renovated barn on the edge of town. Sarah helped him design the space and manage the business side, while also launching her youth basketball program. They worked together, building both a business and a relationship on foundations of honesty, respect, and genuine affection. People talked, of course. The town gossips had a field day with the story of the shy cowboy and the giant bride who found love in the wreckage of a failed wedding. But Marcus and Sarah didn't care. They'd learned that the opinions of others mattered far less than being true to themselves and each other. On the anniversary of the day that should have been Sarah's wedding to Jackson, Marcus took her back to the lake. As they sat together watching the stars, he pulled out a small wooden box, different from the jewelry box, smaller and more significant. Sarah, he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. This year with you has been the happiest of my life. You've made me braver, better, more myself than I've ever been. I know we said we'd take things slow, and we have, but I also know what I want for my future. He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring he designed himself, the band carved from wood and inlaid with silver. Will you marry me? For real this time, with a groom who shows up and appreciates every amazing thing about you. Sarah laughed through her tears. Yes. 1,000 times yes. As he slipped the ring on her finger, they both knew they'd found something rare and precious, not just love, but authentic partnership built on seeing and celebrating each other exactly as they were. The shy cowboy and the giant bride had taken off their protective armor and built something beautiful together, proving that sometimes the best love stories begin in the most unexpected ways. Retry.